lucky to get a...
Okay, everybody, if you can take your seats. We are having a little technical difficulty with the computers up here, so we'll start the meeting. Hopefully we'll resolve the issues. You all set? Still working on it? Okay, if you haven't already done so, please register with the supervisors before you get in, before you have a seat. We count blue slips, we do not count hands. We do have the exits behind you, and this exit over here to my left that you guys entered and signed in case of emergency. We'll line up in the parking lot that probably most of you guys parked in here in case we have to evacuate for fire or anything like that. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to have the head tables introduce themselves. This is Kathy, the school clerk.
Brian Cisneros, Business Administrator.
Charlie King, current chairman of the school board.
Tim Brown, School Board.
Stacy Lozay, School Board.
Joel Shaggy, School Board.
Here again, School Board.
Mr. Johnson. Neil Johnson, Board of Selectmen Representative to the Budget Committee.
Elizabeth Johnson, member of the Budget Committee. Jody Connolly, Chair of the Budget Committee.
Joe Petrie, Budget Committee.
Blanche Chandler, Budget Committee.
And I'm Michael Mullen, moderator. Okay, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones so the vote doesn't interrupt with the meeting. Okay, to the inhabitants of Farmington School District, qualified to vote in the district affairs, you are hereby notified to meet at the Farmington High School Gym, 43rd Drive, Farmington, New Hampshire, in said district on the 5th of day of February 2022 at 6:30 in the evening for session 1 of the annual school district meeting for discussion of Articles 2 through 11 and for any amendments thereto. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended, and no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the articles at session 1. Official ballot voting for the school district officers and on Articles 2 through 11 will occur at the Farmington Town Hall at 531 Main Street, Farmington, New Hampshire, on Tuesday, March 8th, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Article 1, to choose the following district officials. School board members, 2 for 3-year positions. 1 moderator for a 1-year term, 1 clerk for a 1-year term, and 1 treasurer for a 1-year term. Article 2, shall the district accept and place the file the reports of the auditors, agents, committees, and officers choosing to conduct the prudent affairs of the district. Do I have a motion on Article 2? So moved. So moved by Mr. Petrie. Seconded by Penny Moore. Discussion on Article 2? Seeing no discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 2 to the ballot, raise your cards. All opposed? Motion passes. Article 3. Shall a school district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted in a warrant, whereas amended by vote of this first session, for the purposes set forth wherein totaling $16,843,449. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $17,708,856, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the district or by law. Or the school board may hold 1 special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, sections 10 and section 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget. Do I have a motion? Motion by Penny Moore. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jody Conley. Mr. Kenny, would you like to speak to this article, please?
Yes, thank you, Mike. Charlie Key again. Article 3, the Budget Committee recommended a budget is posted in accordance with state statute. The taxpayers at deliberative session, which is this meeting, cannot change the budget from the floor by more than plus or minus 10%. Article 3 contains the operating budget, Fund 10, Fund 21, and Fund 22, federal and special revenues. The federal funding is offset by revenues and there's no tax impact. Food service is primarily self-funded. The operating budget minus all revenues determines the tax rate for the school portion of the bill. The school board gave direction to the administrative team to come forward with a level-funded budget. The school board minimized fixed costs and increased fixed cost increases over last year's budget by moving some expenditures to federal funding to reduce the tax impact in the upcoming fiscal year. Approximately $223,000 of what would have been taxable dollars was moved to federal funding at a savings of the taxpayer of 39 cents per thousand. The resulting budget proposed to the Budget Committee was $65,000, approximately below last year's budget. This went forward to the Budget Committee. This is a list of cuts that were happened at the Budget Committee, totaling $192,500.
Everybody see that list behind me?
What's up? You want to move on to the next slide, Ruth Ann? The school board in the last 2 years brought a projected estimated tax impact from 89 cents per thousand to 14 cents per thousand. Last year, the school board brought an estimated tax impact from $3.14 per thousand down to 45 cents. While Article 3 shows a tax impact because of conservative revenue estimates, with additional revenues, that increase will likely be close to no increase. Because of the state's SWEP formula, changes for this coming fall, your tax rate has already dropped 62 cents per thousand from $1.85 to $1.23, with the revenues to be offset by the state with federal funds. The tax impact is only an estimate based on what we know today. True revenue figures are not available until October and November, some even later because of state and federal cycles. While we're providing you with the worst-case scenario, the likely impact will be closer to zero tax impact for the school board's recommended budget. This board has historically come in at a remarkably low tax impact that conservatively predicted in the budget process. Want to do the next slide? Yeah, one more slide. We were one of the first districts in the state to recognize learning loss and to focus on positive and learning enhancement. When we reopened, we hit the ground at full speed. We invested in technology with federal monies to help us track our children's progress at any point in time. We are working with teachers and staff on monitoring progress and regression and providing intervention sooner than later. Our efforts are paying off and our children are growing and improving. Average gains grades 3 through 8 in reading baselines are 16.4% over last year. We are constantly monitoring our progress and making improvements to change and changes when needed. Thank you.
Jody, try to speak to this article. Need to speak into the microphone, Jody, please.
The school board came to us with the budget. We did reduce it by $192,500. We did find some costs in here where we found we could reduce it. One of them was a contingency fund, unanticipated costs, which we figured was kind of like a slush fund, and they couldn't tell us exactly what that was going to be used for. So, and our budget committee did recommend the budget as we put forth. Yeah.
Can I have that list? To go through the list of cuts, the first one was sick day buyback. That was $1,500. That entire cost category was moved to federal funding. They missed this part. This part here should have also been moved to federal funding with the rest of the expense. In fact, it was represented that it was moved, that this was an error in the budget sheet that we provided. The next three cuts totaling about $58,000 were staff development course reimbursements. That was increases that were increased this year. It was represented by the school district that this here was to cover anticipated course development for the staff. The problem with this is for the last 8 to 10 years, the amounts budgeted have never been reached. Its money has always been turned back, and this increase doesn't have to be taken out of the people's pocket for something that isn't going to be spent. The next was non-negotiated increases district-wide, which was $60,000. They've already built into the non-union wages for employees a 2% increase. This here is an additional increase based on supposedly performance. That's what the 2% increase is supposed to be for performance. If they have additional increases they want to make, they can make that out of the operating budget. They don't need a separate line item for this item. Third was the contingency fund, anticipated, like the chairman stated, for $20,000. They, as said in the slides, they've historically turned back large amounts of money ranging from $500,000 to $1.3 million. They can use that money from that fund from the for contingency uses if needed, without taking it out of people's pockets in advance of the budget, in advance of the need. There's plenty of money in the $17 million budget that they can afford $20,000 in contingency fees, especially when they can't explain what it's for. There's also a contingency fund which they have available, although they haven't made use of, they haven't collected, which is currently 2.5% of the school budget, of the amount collected. That's also available if they so choose to fund it. There's really no need for the $20,000. So that's where the $192,500 came out of, the $17 million budget. They also have $6 million in federal funds that they've received that could be used to offset even more expenses. They've only spent, from the report we received from the district, roughly $600,000 of that, so they still have $5.4 million left that they can use. The least they can do is give back some money to the citizens of this town, of this town and the taxpayers, and cut their anticipated tax rate from $1 to 66 cents. And that was the reasons for the budget committee cuts.
I'd like to speak to the staff development. We took a survey of staff because this is a contractual obligation. It's part of our teacher's contract. We took a survey of staff in the fall to see who would be taking classes next year. The increases are as a result of that survey. It was not a random number that we picked out of the air. This was what we were told by staff they were planning to take. And it is a contractual obligation.
Please state your name and street.
First, I want to commend our school board to work in these conditions with COVID. I work in a school district as well. It's hard. It is so hard, and you guys are doing a phenomenal job for our kids, so I appreciate that very much. And I'd like to amend Article 3 to put the $192,500 back into the budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Penny Moore to add $192,500 to the Article 3. A second by Tim Brown. Discussion on the motion to add $192,500 back to the budget.
Amend that a little bit, so we can level fund the budget.
And you're gonna have to speak into the microphone.
I
Thank
have to
you.
put it down because I'm short.
And direct the questions
To you.
this way. Thank you.
So I want to amend the budget to go on with Penny, but I want to do it for $257,390 for the purpose of level funding this budget.
We have one amendment on the motion on the floor at the time for an amendment for $192,000. So discussion on the $192,500 is what we're at right now. Would you like to speak, sir? Ann? Anything on the $192,500?
I do not, but we'll see what the vote brings, but if we want to level fund it and see what the tax impact on that would be and listen to the board, I'd be willing to come back up here and talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll take hers as a friendly amendment.
We'll take those as a friendly amendment. What was that number again?
You moved the mic, Penny, thank you.
$257,390.
$257,390. Do you accept that as a friendly amendment, Tim? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the amendment is now for $257,390. Discussion on the amendment. Mr. Johnson?
The amendment now is going to afford the budget committee, the school committee, more money than they had originally asked for, with no purpose for that additional $65,000 mentioned. They didn't need it when they submitted the budget. They've said how level funded it was. It was a $65,000 less than last year because of the stuff they moved. There's no purpose for the $65,000 mentioned other than give them $3 million. And that would be an increase of an additional 15 cents, or actually 13 cents to the tax rate, so.
Raymond Street, please.
Angela Cardwell, Main Street. A point of clarification, Mr. King in his comments said that this body here could change the operating budget amount by 10%. How does that apply? As it's written currently in the warrant article, or as it was appropriated by the school board?
As it is currently written in this article, 10% of the $16,843,000 and change.
Thank you,
Is the 10%.
appreciate that, thank you.
Ready?
I disagree with this. I had the school supply trends since 2015-16, when Middleton left. We've gone down by over 200 students. We've increased our teachers. We've gone from 75 teachers in 16-17 up to 81 teachers this year. You know, the class sizes are down. There's some classes that have 4 students, 8 students, 11 students. I mean, really, you know, this is taxpayer money. This is not, money just doesn't fall from the trees. Everybody's having a hard time right now, and I think that we really need to think of the taxpayers. The school also has almost $6 million in federal COVID funding that they can use for many different things. They're already using some of that grant money to pay teacher salaries, and there's only 4 that are grant funded right now. They could make better use of the funds that are given to them, and as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it is wasted. So I think we really need to think of the taxpayers in this town and not just throw money away. Thank you.
You broke it.
There you go.
Angela Cardinal, again, Main Street. This one, Article number 3, on the very bottom line, it says the Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 6 to 1 to 1. Now, in my experience, that vote reflects whether or not they want voters to vote yes or no to this article as written. May I inquire, and if the minutes were available, I would have read them, from the Budget Committee meeting, the hearing when this cut was made, what was the vote? How many committee members were present for the Budget Committee when $192,500 was cut? And what was the vote? There were 8 Budget Committee members present. 6 voted in the affirmative, 1 voted in the negative, and 1 abstained. And how many committee members are there in total? 11? 10. 10 seats are full? Okay, so 2 were absent, all right. So 2 did not vote. And can we hear from the one objector and the one abstained? Please. Branch Channel. I voted against the budget because I always put the disclaimer that I am a former educator and I very much support the school system. However, I also am a senior citizen. That's hard to believe. I can't believe that myself. But anyway, I have to think about my tax dollars as well. Fixed budgets are not easy to change up and down. So
as I said at the meeting, I'm very torn about this, because I don't want to have my taxes raised up, but I want to support the schools because I know how important education is to children. So I guess in hearing the discussions and want to increase the budget, I guess I want to hear specifically if these things are, if it's increased, how am I going to vote? I'm sitting here wondering about that. I think it would depend on exactly what the tax impact is going to be, how much more is going to be added to that bottom line of tax. And then I have to sit here and think about that. And I'll be thinking about it until I go to the voting meeting, probably. I might vote one way tonight, but it might be different on March 8th. So, you know, I'm really torn about this because of the tax impact, frankly. But I support the schools. Some people here know that, and I'm torn. Then that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Ken?
Tim Brown, School Board. I abstained from this primarily because there was a drastic reduction in the budget, and I didn't confer with my body, and I represent my body in the meeting. However, I'll tell you this. Everybody's talking about tax impact. Our bills are going to go up. Nobody's more conservative with a tax bill than I am. If you remember, I led and filled this room a couple of years ago to cut our school budget. This budget, on the state side of our tax bill, it's already reduced 65 cents per thousand. That means to get to zero, we've got to knock off 45 cents per thousand. To knock off 35 cents per thousand, we have to return to the taxpayers about 250,000, and we're at zero. Most likely, we'll come in below zero this year. This board ran on two platforms directed by the taxpayers. One was to fix our taxes and try to stay level, and the second one was improve education, and we've done both. Listen to all the comments about save our tax bill, save our tax bill. The town budget committee went up well over $300,000. So we're only thinking about the tax bill on one side. Thank you.
Mr. King? Ruth Ellen, could you please address the class sizes for the members here?
If anyone wants to call me, I'll do that, please.
The classes that have classes with fewer than 10 students are primarily Farmington High School this year. I have physics with 4. I have several classes that have 9, an integrated math class, AP English, video production class, anatomy and physiology, sports medicine, French culture, U.S. history yearbook, intro to Arduino, an adaptive PE class, art 3-4, calculus, stats and trig, and then band. These are classes that traditionally we have heard from our community. We want the upper level classes. We want to still have an availability for our students, even if our class sizes are smaller, because it's important for them to not only have the access, but also the interaction within the classroom as opposed to moving all of these online.
I was actually going to talk about those class sizes too, because what we want for our students here in Farmington is educational opportunities, and these smaller class sizes give those educational opportunities that we would have to either pay tuition to Governor Wentworth for them to get classes there at a much higher cost, I'm sure, than what we have to pay for those classes in those small class sizes here. So I just wanted to address that.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Okay, as far as the small class sizes, we do have something called VLATs, which we could have the students take these online. The expectation from the superintendent is that we have these students going to college. Well, the colleges today are doing the majority of their classes online, so it's a good learning experience for them. like I just said, they have almost $6 million that is not in the budget. It's not in the budget. They have $6 million that they can use to help to bring down the taxpayer money. Thank you.
Tim Brown, the Budget Committee hearing for the chairman of the Budget Committee was advised of the law. In the city and the state of New Hampshire, with the union body, to contract out services that are included in that contract. That would cost the district an unfair labor practice, it would cost us fines, and it would cost us increased wages. She doesn't want to accept that. She wants to throw it on the table, cut down the stool, and say, cut, 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 cut. That's their motive.
Okay, Mr. Kenny. Thank you. I'd like to address we have set, as far as the federal funds, the direction of this board is to spend those funds on education first. That's where we're concentrating right now. Some of those other funds are geared towards facility upgrades, whether it's heating and ventilation, or whatever those may be, but we're concentrating on educational enhancement at this point. The few positions, I think it might be 4, that we're funding, are positions that we feel are necessary to improve our education quality, because when these federal funds run out, we're going to have 2 choices. We are going to ask the taxpayer to fund them, or hopefully we'll be in a position educationally where we will not need to continue these positions, or we migrate other staff into those responsibilities, depending on where we have employees. Could we offset more of our budget there? Yes, but then when it comes back to the federal funds are no longer available, there'll be a huge tax cut with the same amount of people in force. We're keeping that in mind, so whatever we do to offset that cost, we're not going to set the taxpayer up for a huge increase when those funds are no longer available. Because we don't know what the federal fund is going to be in the next few years. It's constant change. Sitting on this board, a lot of those monies that we don't get firm commitments at this time. So we came in with a very conservative estimate on our revenues. Those typically change, and that's why, even though this is the expected tax impact, we feel that based on what we're being told, that we're going to be, that's a conservative number, and we're going to be better off than that. And historically, in the last 2 years, we've done significantly better as far as the tax, lowering that tax impact for the last 2 years, to make sure that we minimize the impact as close to zero as we can, while concentrating on improving our education, whether it's through a learning management system, whether that's through additional support and training for the teachers. There's a lot of things that we're working on, and you can drop the budget, but that's not going to help us improve the education. That's why we came in a level funded and tried to maximize through where we feel it's necessary with the federal funds to add in the people to improve the quality of education and the output from the schools. Thank you.
Okay, the discussion is trying to deviate away from the amendment of $257,000. It's not about what money they have in the bank. We're talking, this discussion for $257,000. Mrs. Byrne.
I thought long and hard this time last year when I put my name on the ballot. I've been watching the school board, many of you know that I attended for well over a year. I got very, very involved in it, and what I learned was that this board, seated in front of you, if they say they're going to do something, it gets done. We said we would watch the pocketbook last year, we did it. We said we would use the available federal money, the ESSER fund, coming in to improve education. We purchased the learning management system so that our teachers in real time, on a day-to-day basis, not waiting until report cards come out and say, oh, John, you didn't do so good. We know on a daily basis. And our staff is excited about that. They're willing to look at that data and say, well, we better fix that. But they can do that now. They don't do that 4 times a year anymore. They do it daily. We guaranteed with the money that you gave us last year that we would move forward and put education first. That's what we've done. We've put special programs in. We have the YMCA here now. We purchased 2 buses so that we could get kids that needed to stay after for extra education to do that. That's how you improve the educational quality in this town. No, we're at the bottom. We're not close to the bottom. But I can tell you right now, looking at the figures that I saw yesterday, realizing that in a short 3, maybe 4 months, we've brought the quality of our kids' day-to-day education up by 16%. I think you need to listen to our board, and I think you need to trust us. If that's what we say we need to make this work, darn it, that's what we need. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, the amount of money that's being suggested to put back in the budget, can I ask, what is that for? What are the specific things that you would want to see happen with that increase? Is that appropriate to ask that? The motion that we're voting on.
So the motion for the $257,390 was to level fund this year's budget to last year's number. That was the statement that was just made, the level fund.
So level fund, okay, so.
The level fund.
Okay.
Specific items is that money going to be used for? Because we took out lines that we felt were unnecessary.
Are you asking for legal opinion?
I would like a legal opinion on.
Opinion? But we're asking for a legal opinion with regard to, does the motion need to identify the specific line items into which that additional 200 and... So there's no requirement to specifically identify the line items in a motion to amend. It typically is advisable for the purposes of budget preparation and identifying what the monies that are going to be appropriated are for submitting to the ultimate voters. But it's not a legal requirement as part of a motion to amend to say, add X amount to each line item.
So it'll be up to the board's discretion, the school board's discretion on where the money is spent, or if it does not need to be spent, does not get spent.
That is correct. I mean, there's going to have to be additional forms that are prepared and approved by the school board, identifying where that money is going to be intended to be placed and appropriated. And I believe that there is already some guidance because there's a certain amount that's already been identified as being restored to the budget associated with the 192 that was reduced at the budget committee process. But I believe that does leave an outstanding question as to the $65,000 in addition to the 192 as to where is that going to be added into the line item budget. I will say it's better practice to identify that.
Mr. King. Not speaking for the board, but my personal opinion as a member is if the money is, this amount is put back in, that I would be in favor of putting $192,500 back exactly where we had it in the budget for the reasons we had it in there. We could debate every one for, for another hour, but that's what we came forward with, and that's where we should put it back. The additional $65,000, I think the board would have to have discussion if this motion passes on where it will be spent. But certainly, based upon our goals, education coming first, whether it would be additional learning enhancement or whether it be things that aid our teachers in accomplishing the goals educationally, I think that's what this board would lean to. So that would take a discussion on the board. Any other discussion? Sam? Made it under the wire.
Not the first time. Kevin Hogan up in Curtis Road. Okay, I keep hearing about the $6 million federal funds, okay? First off, you guys are doing a good job. Don't misunderstand me. Is there another trade that we need to use that by? The $6 million, is it gonna be done by this year, next year, year after?
So there are multiple funds that there's actually 4 grants that we have. And they start ending, one's done already, one will be September 30th of next year, and then every September 30th for the next 2 years. So 2024, they'll all be gone. A lot of it is already encumbered, meaning that we've already have the expenses put in, but they'll also, it's up to the board really how that will get done in the future, whether it's going to be, capital projects as well as learning enhancement, but there are all requirements for these. Some of these grants they're not all the same. Some of them require a good percentage of them to go towards learning enhancement. Some of them do not. Some of them allow us to move positions in. Some of them do not. They are very strict in the guidelines. You just can't take anything, a big chunk of the budget, and move into a grant. That's not the way it works. And it's also on a reimbursement basis. So we don't have the funds in the bank. We have to spend it. We send it into the Department of Education. Department of Education, usually 30 to 60 days later, will give us the funds. So we actually have to front it.
I'm sure everybody is, but we need to keep an eye on when that dries up.
Speaking of the
We need to use that before it dries up. Now, before the end of the, like for education.
I hear about education for teachers, for classes they want to take and everything else. Could that money be used for that?
Absolutely. Well, yes.
Okay, so that would be able to knock that out of the, we'd be able to take that out of the budget. On paper, and you're still going to pay for it, but we're going to be getting that back.
But not every one of the grants, you cannot just take from the budget and move over. Some of them you can.
I got that.
Some of them you can't. So you can't, if you've already been funding, training for professional development for the last 10, 20 years, I can't just put that into a grant. It's not that simple.
Okay.
So there's certain things that can go and certain things that can't, and it has to be approved beforehand. So we could say, this sounds like a great idea, we can put it in. We send it to Department of Education, Department of Education could say, nope, it's not going to work.
But to me, that's part of education. You have to teach you have to have your teachers educated up to date, so they can pass that on to students.
Well, it's not as simple as it would sound, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, I don't think we're going to kill it by here, but okay. Okay, comments to the amendment, please.
Jeff Vaughn. Can the board speak to the cuts that were made to bring it down to your proposed budget? The difference between Ann's amendment and your proposed budget? What cuts were made to bring it down to your proposed budget?
So basically, $55,000, yeah.
So to move that, primarily there were a number of positions that were moved into ESSER. We are allowed to move some, not all of these are, we can't supplant everything, but we took 3 positions and moved those into ESSER in their entirety. So in doing so, we dropped our proposed budget by about $223,000, and that accounted for the difference because we took the entire position that went over, including benefits. So those 3 positions coming over dropped and made the difference. It was a psychologist position and 2 other support positions. Speech pathologist.
And our SRO officer.
And the SRO position. And our IT, in large part, has also moved to ESSER.
Correct.
Okay, and so is there going to come a point, whether it be next year, 2 years, or 3 years down the road, where those positions need to be taken over by the district again?
Those positions will either need to be ended or come back into the district. We have other positions that are there that have been added back in that we've lost over the years. We have a social worker. We have 2 English teachers. We have interventionists, all that right now are being funded out of ESSER It's about $900,000 worth of positions that we're going to have to really look at closely to see what comes back into our operating budget. Those are positions right now that are crucial to our operation, and we're going to need to look at that closely. I am very, very concerned about moving any more positions to the grants because it's going to increase the cliff that we're going to face when these grants end.
Thank you. Mr. Petrie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, at this rate of adding approximately $250,000, the rate per child would be $21,914. That's a lot of money when the average around the state is around $17,000. We should be able to what I would like to see is people be teachers be dual qualified in high school, so they can teach either at the community college level and the high school level. What that would do, that would give the students opportunities so they could complete an associate's degree before they leave high school. Now, we need to see greater academic achievement. At the state level, the legislature I'm talking about, we appropriated $100 million. That's at 62 cents that you've seen. We did that for a reason, and it's going to come out in accuracy at the beginning of the school year in the fall. So we realize that we just don't have the monies around the state. And our population, we got the second greatest population in the country. Now, we keep doing this, and eventually, people won't be able to afford to live here, which is very unfortunate. But we need to get our act together and make sure that we get excellent academic achievement. I don't see that. I mean, I've heard 16%.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator, is this on the amendment?
I was thinking the same thing. Mr. Petrie, the amendment is for $257,000 and change.
Right, we're talking about, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about education and academic achievement versus what you get for it. And that is very apropos.
I don't see it actually amending to the Article 3 overall, yes, I do, but actually to this amendment, I don't see how this discussion is pertinent or germane to the amendment for 257.
Sure opinion.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Shulman. I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction here at SAU 61, which is Farmington School District. I'd like the pleasure to please address the moderator and Budget Committee and the Board.
You may.
I wanted to speak to one of the pieces that Mr. Brown has brought up about wanting us to improve quality of our education here. And also to speak to Mr. Petrie's comment that he was interested in that 16% increase that we have seen. The school board has been supporting the district in its efforts to improve education. Ms. Brown spoke about the fact that we have employed now a learning management system and that we're looking at data. This is helping us to drive increases and improvements in our students. How this connects to the amendment is that one of the line items that was slated to be pulled was the $58,000 for staff development and course development. Our staff is looking to grow so that our students can grow. So part of this amendment I would like to support, because as I also agree with Mr. Petrie, if we're going to have teachers who could potentially provide dual enrollment, we need teachers to have those credentials, and that comes through that line item for staff development and course development. So for our students, we need our staff to also be educated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Moore. A motion to call the question in a second. Don't hear. Okay, we're voting on the amendment for $257,390. All in favor of the amendment, please show your cards. Call the question, please show your cards. All opposed? That looks like 2/3 to me. Okay, now we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of adding $257,390 to Article 3, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Now, if my math is correct, Article 3 should now read, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $17,100,839. $17,100,839. Any discussion on the amended Article 3?
Kevin Hogan, Curtis Road.
Okay, also you have 66 per thousand. Okay, what is that number going to be?
What's that? You estimated that it would be $1.12 on the warrant.
Okay.
What is the estimated tax impact at this point? Or like you reiterate, based upon what you think the federal funding is going to be, and where we're going to be fiscally, then I'm confident that this bill is going to bring that tax impact close to zero, if not below.
Okay, any discussion on Article 3? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 3, please raise your cards. As amended. All opposed. Articles moved to the ballot.
Motion to restrict reconsideration on Article 3.
A motion to restrict reconsideration by Tim Brown, second by Penny Moore. Discussion. All in favor of restricting reconsideration, please raise your cards. All opposed. Motion passes. Okay, I've been informed before the meeting here that the school board would like to address Articles 4, 8, and 9 to have a discussion on those three articles because they'll all end up dealing with the same work that they'd like to amend to have done this year. So we'll start with Article 4. So, Article 4, shall the district vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 to be added to the Farmington School District Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from the June 30th, 2022 fund balance available for transfer on July 1. No amounts to be raised by taxation. The balance in this fund is currently $26,693. Article 8, receives the district shall vote to appoint the Farmington School Board as agents to expend from the Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Repair Capital Reserve Fund, previously established in 1984. The balance of this amount is $313,824. And Article 9 is, shall the school district, if warrant Article 8 is defeated, vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $313,824.36 for the purpose of the Farmington High School paving project, and authorize the withdrawal of $313,824.36 from the Farmington High School Construction and renovation capital reserve fund, which is created for that purpose. No amount to become from general taxation. The balance of this account as of the end of last year is $313,824.36. This article will be null and void if Article 8 is approved. I have a motion to discuss all three articles. So moved by Bernie Moran, second by Penny Moran. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to give some background to these three warrant articles. The first one is to raise or basically to fund through undesignated fund balance repaving at Valley View. It needs to be done. We feel that we're still going to be able to meet our budgetary tax impacts that we just stated and do this out of undesignated fund balance. That we have two estimates in hand. We will be going out for a competitive bid process, but we have two estimates, one for Valley View of approximately $194,000, and the other one is regarding the high school, which is a complete grind and repave at $358,000. So one Article 4 is to raise $200,000 for paving out of undesignated fund balance at the end of the year with no tax impact. One Article 8 is looking to make us agents to expend the balance of the high school fund. If you remember back last year, the taxpayers approved us to expend that for our roofing. It was slated by original estimates to be completely depleted, and some additional funds need to come from other sources at the school through competitive bid process. We were underbid substantially on that, so this 300 and whatever the balance is, 313 is the money that was not spent for the roofs. So that is why we're looking to the agents to expend that fund so that we can put it for the purpose of the repaving, which is more than that, but we feel with our other line items that we can cover the difference or come in under that number through a competitive bid process. If the taxpayers do not feel comfortable with making us agents to expend, that's why Article 9 is there to ask to spend that for paving. So that's the broad strokes of what these three warrant articles are intended for.
Mr. Johnson.
The question is, if you could direct me more to, I think, legal. Article 4 specifies the FSD Building Grounds Capital Reserve Fund. Article 8 references the Farmington, FHS Construction and Renovation Repair Capital Reserve Fund. And Article 9 says the Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Reserve Fund. I know they're all referring to the same fund.
No, they are not.
Two funds.
Two funds.
8 and 9 are the same funds.
8 and 9, okay. Okay, one says, and like this is the legal question, one says FHS Construction and Renovation Fund, and the other says Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Fund. Now, I know FHS means Farmington High School, but this has to match what the trustees name as the fund. So one of these would have to be changed.
Agreed. It should reflect the name as that approved, that, or the original warrant article that approved the creation of that fund.
Okay, so according to the trustees, it should be titled FSD Construction and Renovation. What's that? Well, then there's a second one here, which is, okay, the FHS Construction and Renovation Repair Fund. So I just want to make it clear which fund is looking to be used, and we should make that correction now because it may cause problems when they try to withdraw money from the trustees.
Article 9 should be the one then that should be amended to reflect
FHS Construction and Renovation Repair Capital Reserve Fund. Okay. Right there, hold on a sec. Yeah. What was the third?
I'm on the place.
But he's right. He leaves here. Right, we get it. We've been very, very judicious about it. Very.
Okay. Could I get a motion to amend Article 9 to strike the words Farmington High School from the line that says Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund and replace it with FHS?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Johnson.
Hold on a second.
Hold on.
It should be to replace Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund with FHS Construction and Renovation Repair Capital Reserve Fund. That's what it says in the form.
Yes, it does. I apologize. So we're going to strike Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund and replace it with FHS Construction, Renovation, and Repair Fund. Which is the verbiage that is in Article 8.
Right, FHS, Construction and Renovation and Repair Capital Reserve Fund.
Yes.
Okay, I modify my motion.
I'll second. Motion, amendment by Mr. Johnson, second by Charlie. Yep. Any discussion on the amendment?
To completely deplete the fund, oh, we're talking about the amendment, I'll wait.
Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of amending Article 9 to remove Farmington High School Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund and replace it with FHS Construction, Renovation, and Repair Fund. Please raise your cards. All opposed? Amendment carries. Okay, discussion on Article 4, Article 8, and Article 9 as amended, please.
All right, now my question is, are we eliminating these capital reserve funds by depleting them completely? Is that, should that be part of the motion as well, and to stop using them?
I have Mr. King.
The intent is to potentially fully deplete that fund, and then at a subsequent year, if it's depleted, because we don't know until it's fully expended, then we'll come back and ask the taxpayer to either replenish that fund or get rid of that capital reserve fund. But we had talked about that originally, but depending on not knowing where the competitive bid process comes in, it could potentially not be fully expended next year. It's likely to, if this passes, but we will worry at a subsequent year whether we would ask the taxpayer to dissolve that fund or not.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we're going to take a vote one article at a time. All in favor of moving Article 4 to the ballot as worded, please raise your cards. All opposed? Number 4 passes. Article 8. All in favor of moving Article 8 to the ballot as worded, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 9, as amended. All in favor of moving the article to the ballot as worded, as amended? All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Article 5, that the district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the kitchen equipment capital reserve fund previously established. The sum is to come from the June 30th, 2022 fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2022. No amounts to be raised from taxation. The balance of this fund, as of the end of last year, is $36,175.94. Do I have a motion to accept? Motion to accept by Mr. Johnson, second by Penny Moore. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Article 5, moving to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 6, shall the district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be added to the outdoor athletic facilities capital reserve fund previously established. The sum to come from the balance, from the June 30th, 2022 fund balance, available for transfer on July 1, 2022. No amounts to be raised from taxation. Balance of this fund, as of the end of last year, is $11,834. Do I have a motion to accept? Motion by Penny Moore, seconded by Mary Byrne. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 6, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 7, shall the district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Farmington School District Bus Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from the June 30th, 2022 fund balance, available for transfer on July 1, 2022. No amounts to be raised from taxation. The balance of this fund as of the end of last year is $162,922 and change. Do I have a motion for number 7? Elizabeth Johnson, second. Second by Mary Byrne. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 7, please raise your cards. All opposed? Article 10. Shall the district vote in accordance with RSA 198:4-B, Section 2, to increase indefinitely until rescinded the district's authority to retain any unused portion of the year-end unassigned general funds from the preceding fiscal year from the current percentage of 2.5% to 5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment under RSA 198:5. Do I have a motion to move this article? Motion by Mary Byrne, second. Second by Elizabeth Johnson. Discussion. Mr. King.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to this so people understand what this is. So currently we are authorized to retain for emergency purposes to 2.5% of our budget. This board has not done that in the past 2 years and is not doing it this year. That $20,000 as contingency fund was the board setting aside some money because we did not retain the 2.5%, which we are currently authorized to do from undesignated fund balance. We gave back everything we could. The law has changed. It allows now districts to go from 2.5% up to 5%. This board does not have any intention to exercise this, but we're coming to the taxpayers to see if you will authorize us to be up to 5%, if in the future it's needed, which would be consistent to the change of law. Did I get that right with that? Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
The problem that I have with the bill increase is the fact that when the 2.5% was originally approved by the voters, there are a number of checks and balances that were in place, such as approval by Department of Revenue, approval from the Department of Education, and then the approval of the Budget Committee before that money can be expended. The change in the law, increasing it from 2.5% to 5%, did away with all those checks and balances. The only check and balance placed on the school board in this instance is a simple public hearing, and then they can expend that amount of money. That was my opposition to it, was the fact that it could be used for more purposes than what it was originally set aside for. It's easier for them to access the funds, and we lost the checks and balances by the Department of Education and the Department of Revenue. So,
Mr. King? Mr. King?
You still have a public hearing that you have to do, which is accessible to all taxpayers in the district, and it has to be publicly made public to the newspaper, online, and we also use multiple other sources to get that information out for when that, if that ever does come up, we have an emergency to do that. It doesn't happen that often, especially since we don't have anything held back right now. So there are still checks and balances, it's just they're different. And a lot of times what they do is what I've seen other districts do, and districts where I've been before, or currently are, where you utilize those funds for anything from maybe adjusting the tax rate to maybe a capital improvement project or something like that that comes up in the last minute that needs to get done, but it's an emergency. But you still always have that ability to come in front of the board and have that discussion with the board of the public hearing in order to do that.
But we're currently not asking, we're holding back even into 2.5% and have not for the last 2 years. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
I acknowledge the fact that a public hearing is necessary. The problem with the public hearing is that once the board, whether it's this board or any future board, makes up its mind, the people coming to argue that point, in many cases, they're not going to sway their decision. So it's still up to the board. They get control over the money, and the voters have very little say over how that money is going to be spent.
I partially agree with Mr. Johnson. They would still have oversight, though, because there could be a petition warrant article the next year should the school board go that route and not do the will of the people. I wasn't originally in favor of the 5% because we haven't used it, and I'm really questioning why we would want to go up to 5% if we haven't used it yet.
Mr. King?
The main intention of this board is to present it to the taxpayers. If they approve it, fine. If they don't, but the law has changed, and that is why the warrant article is there, to make it consistent. I mean, on the town side, they have ability in their undesignated fund balance to run it as high as up to 17%. Typically, this town does not. Typically, they have it between 6 and 12%, depending on what's left over. And just like you said, the board could have, the board of selectmen could have a meeting and say, this is what we want to do, instead of give it to the taxpayer, back to the taxpayers. This year, that is what happened. The board of selectmen did not choose, because of issues, to give back undesignated fund balance. Where it is handled differently, where if it's undesignated funds, it all goes back unless it falls under this 2.5%. So we are not allowed to retain anything that's left over from the previous year.
Okay, well, I have a question. 2.5 to 5% of current fiscal year's net assessment. Is that the assessment of the town or the assessment that's assessed to the school district, like the roughly $6 or $8 million we have to raise in taxes? What is that number?
To the school district, it's ranged between $160,000 and $175,000.
And that was the 2.5%?
Yes.
So 5% would roughly be 350,000, give or take?
Correct.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Article 10? Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 10 to the ballot, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Article 11, to see if the district will vote to authorize the school board to sell, gift, or otherwise convey all or a portion of the land identified as tax map U5, lot 68, constituting the so-called school located on School Street, on such terms as the school board deems reasonable in its discretion. I have a motion to move this article forward. So moved by Brian Moore, seconded by Tony Warren. Discussion. Mr. King. Well, to give some history to this, hopefully everyone knows where the School Street School is. It was added to the New Hampshire Historical Registry last year by a vote of the board, but the school has not used this building for quite a few years. It is in disrepair. We did seek an estimate to bring that back up to occupancy. That was approximately $300,000. Without having a need for this building, we're looking for permission to put it, basically get rid of it. And there's a few other caveats. I think now that we have to offer it to charter schools first. That's something that passed this year, but the board would be putting it out for a request for proposal for anybody that would be interested in acquiring this piece of property to renovate, restore, take down. But really, we don't see a need for it, and we don't ask the taxpayers to rehabilitate this building without a need. Thank you. Discussion.
I feel that if the charter schools, if a school doesn't come and say they want that building, to give it to someone in the town or gift it, to go gifted, maybe the people that you gift it to might give a donation. I'm thinking like the 500 or somebody that has an idea with this building to do something remarkable, because we have a lot of good things that happen in this town, and maybe with the historical standard, maybe 500 could get it, or maybe we can make something with all the tiger pride that we have. We can maybe put, make that a historical building for Farmington. So like my thought is, if the schools, we can't sell it, to give it to somebody or gift it to somebody, would maybe that come with 500, or someone else who has the money to want to gift, that gets it gifted, to give a donation. That's my thought on it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of moving Article 11, please raise your cards. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'd also like to thank the National Honor Society, who's graciously out back providing drinks and food for everybody. Please stop by, grab somebody, make a donation to the students. That'd be great. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, Penny Line. Second, Reverend Johnson. All in favor?
Discussion?
All done. Meeting's over.
Mr. Murray, can I use the mic?
What's your name?
I would like to, from the board, I'd like to thank Paul Roberts for his dedicated years of service to the district. Paul is going to be retiring at the end of the year, and I want to thank him on behalf of the board, the school, and the town for the years that he's been committed to the town of Farmington. Thank you, Paul.
Have a good night, people.